Hey Team Absolution fans, welcome to 2018. Today we are talking about chaos. Stick around. Alright ladies and gentlemen, it's been a while since you've seen us behind the camera, but we're back trying to bring you that good content. And what better way to start out 2018 than with some chaos? I'm going to go over the good old new build for chaos. This is my version 1 build. This is what I've been playing recently. This is probably what I'll stick with for a while. There might be a few changes. I'll go over them as I see the changes. So we're going to start with the grade 3s and work our way down. So of course, you got to run the new boy. Well, not the new boy if you watch the Japanese spoilers, but the newest boy for us here in the US. Star-vader, Chaos Breaker, Crisis. I'll quickly go over what he does. So Counterblast 1, when he's placed on Vanguard, or when you stride, when you're G unit with Star-vader in its original card name Stride, you can pay the cost. If you do, your opponent chooses one of his or her rear guards and locks it. Your opponent choice part, I'm not a huge fan of. The rest of it's really nice. The fact that you can use it on Ride is incredibly advantageous for you. And the last but not least, when your opponent's lock card is unlocked, if a unit was not retired due to the effect of this card during this turn, you may retire that unit and draw a card. So that's really good too. Helps you get a draw. It's going to combo with some other cards later on that's really good. So yeah, I like to use him. We run 4 of him because he's your main ride and he's what you're going to go for. Now, our next grade 3 up here is we run 2 of the OG, the Chaos Breaker Dragon. These are original BT13, but you can run the reprint, you can run the reprint, you can run the full arts, you can run the SP, whatever you want to, but I'm not really going to go over his skill. You really don't want to ride him, but he's there because he does have Chaos in his name, and sometimes you might want to use him if you run into Grade 1 Rush or something like that. You might need him still. I don't like to ride him at all, but actually a lot of the Japanese lists only run 1 of him, and then they run this other promo card that we just don't have. But I run 2 of them. I like him. He seems to be pretty nice. So now moving on to the grade 2s, we run the... Look at all these... Look at all this gold. Thanks, Nate. So this is... Photon, I'm not gonna say his name, even though this one I think has an error or like the way Bushy translated it was wrong. It's like Companion Star-vader, Photon. So it's, why do we run Photon still when you have Strange Dragon? Photon's a really good card, guys. It's really good, and more importantly than anything, it locks on call before battle phase, which sometimes can be important. And it just helps you get there when you want to this deck is going to be a lot about controlling the board until you drop Glueball, and then making sure that you get as much advantage from Glueball being on the field, and this automatically locks something on call. It doesn't have any requirements at all for that, except for having another lock card, which you can do in 1,800 different ways this Sunday. This deck literally, it has a card that can start the lock chain in both. If he has a dude on the board, you have tons of cards that are able to lock things before Photon can get to lock something else. If he doesn't have dudes on board, we have cards for that as well. What I really like about this deck so far is that it's very just versatile in its ability to get lock cards on the board some way or another. So I use Photon for that reason. The other card we use is a promo that I never thought would actually see serious play, but it is now. Star-vader Mulepton. We're going with that. This card is actually, I run 4 of these. I run 4 Photon as well. So the reason that we run this is because it is another way. Hand locking, while expensive in this card, is incredibly versatile in being able to really, when you're dropping Glueball, they may think that they have enough cards, and you need something else in a locked position on the board. This can get you there, and that's why I like to use it. It really helps you get an additional card out of their hand. Sometimes, if you want to go Deluge, and you're like, okay, they have 6 cards in hand, They're gonna drop 2 with Deluge. I really need something else. Maybe if I could just drop something else to get out of their hand, I can kill them this turn. Mulepton can get you there. It's just a really versatile tech card. I don't like that it's an 8K. I don't like that it's CB2. But with Zinc and other things in the deck that we'll talk about, I think it's worth running. So I run it as a 4 of. Just don't go crazy with it. It's a tech card for a reason. You use it when you need to. Don't overextend yourself like I had when I early playtesting and drop it just for the heck of it, just to get another card out of their hand. Sometimes it's important. Sometimes, now if you're dropping Glueball on Stride and you want to push for game, this can help you there because one, it's going to give you another lock card on board, so it's going to be another 3K, and it's going to help you. So another card that kind of follows the same vein there is, I cannot pronounce his name to be honest with you. So Star-vader, Globuladia. Globuladia. So we're going to go with that. If you've been watching Team Absolution videos, you know that my pronunciation skills are not the best when it comes to Vanguard cards. So I run 4 of this card as well, and the reason I run this is the power is kind of nice in it. That's not the main reason. It's a skill. It's CB1. When it's placed on rear guard, if you have a grade 3 or greater with Star-vader in its name, your opponent chooses 1 card from his or her drop zone and places it on rear guard as a lock card until the end of turn. This unit gets plus 3K, and then if your opponent has 2 or more locked units, it gets another 3K. So this is another one of those ways where what I really like about this card, more so than some other situations, is that so Photon needs another lock card, and Mulepton needs another lock. Mulepton needs another lock card as well. But this card doesn't, and it's one of the few that don't. So now, granted, that may not mean something if you're going to lock something on Stride, but let's say they don't have something on Stride, and you want to get something locked there so you can work with it and do something. This can help you get there. It's also just another way of getting lock cards on the board. So it's just another way to help Glueballs creep up. It's another way to keep pressure on the board, or keep control, I guess, on the board, which I really like about that. So now we're going to move on to grade 1s. So we run 4 of the new PG. So this is Iron Wall, Star-vader, Thorium. We run him because free cards are really nice. If you're able to get the triangle lock, which you can do very easily, like we just went through, you can get 2 locks on Deluge alone if they're not at 4 damage, and then you can just get a 3rd for another CB with the last grade 2 I just talked about. There's a lot of versatility in this deck. Getting 3 lock cards is not incredibly difficult, and this helps you push for even more. This gets you advantage when you're on the defense. You drop this, if they have 3 lock cards, you get a draw, which is nice. Next, we use Star-vader, Penrose Gate. Penrose Gate is the Chaos Stride fodder, which is really nice that they finally got one. You drop it for Stride, but you also have to use it with. Actually, it's not just for Chaos. Technically, you can use it for any Star-vader. I just want to make that clear before the comments come flooding in. If you're Vanguard with Star-vader in its card name, while you're paying the cost for a G unit with Star-vader in its card name, you may stride, and this card is counted as a grade 3. So long as you're striding into a Star-vader, and you are a Star-vader, then you're golden. But the second skill is Chaos specific, which is why I say it's the Chaos one. Because you Soul Blast 1, when it's discarded from your hand for the cost of Stride. If you have Vanguard with Chaos in its original card name, you can pay the cost. If you do, look at the top 7, reveal a card with Chaos in its card name, add it to your hand, shuffle your deck. So I like this card because it keeps the Stride train going. Deck thinning is deck winning, as we like to say here in Team Absolution. So if you're pitching this for Stride, you Soul Blast 1, you check the top 7, you get another Chaos. Not only do you have a Stride something to pay for Stride the next turn, or for PJ fodder, you've taken out a grade 3 from your deck, which means there is more likely that you won't check a grade 3. And so that's why I like to run 4 of these, because you need Stride fodder. And then next is 3. Now you can run 4, you can run 3, but you definitely at least have to run 3. You don't run any less than 3. I run 3 currently. I could easily see myself in the future going up to 4, depending on what kind of matchups I see in the future, in future tournaments. So if your opponent has a lock card, and you have Chaos in your card name, you put in the Soul, counter charge 2, Soul charge 2. This card is bonkers. This card is really good. It was really good when CBD at first got its like stride support, and then it got even the counter charge 2 has become more important in my opinion than the Soul charge 2. Well, the Soul charge 2 is still nice for other cards like Glueball and well, mainly Glueball to be honest. Glueball and Deluge. But really, the counter charge 2 really keeps you going because you have so many, you know, Crisis is counterblast, Mulepton is 2 counterblast, and Globuladia is another 1 counterblast. So you have to definitely be able to have an unflip engine, and this is the best one we've got. So gotta run at least 3. I run 3. You can run as many more, up to 4. So 3 or 4 as you want. Next is Star-vader Metanax Dragon. So he's basically a Volt line that is GB1 and gets plus 4K if your opponent has 2 more lock cards. So that's basically what it does when it boosts. It gets plus 4K if your opponent has 2 more lock cards. And then if you hit, choose one of your opponent's lock cards and it is Omega locked. So you might be asking, why do we want to Omega lock in this deck? Because Omega lock is still detrimental. It still hurts them. You Omega lock a starter and they can't use its skill. You Omega lock a rear guard that's in the front row, unless you're playing against Kagro or against Bermuda Triangle, an ever-increasing amount of decks. They're not going to have an instant way out of it. So it's really good. The plus 4K is really nice for boosting. I like them. I like them a lot. And the issue that some Star-vader players have come across, including myself, is just like, the PG you want to keep in hand, Penrose Gate you want to keep in hand, Zinc's going to go into Soul for cost. So really these two and the other card I want to talk about are the only ones that you want continuously on the board. And that's, I think, an important point to bring up here. So we run 2 of him. If you want to run 1 more Zinc, I take out one of these. For my Spicy Tech 1-0 of the Perez corner over here, we run Volt Line, OG Volt Line. So this is basically not GB1. When an attack hits the Vanguard, this unit boosted, choose one of your locked cards, can't be unlocked. So basically this is, sometimes I'll search this out with my starter. Sometimes I will, if I'm going first, I get the first attack. Sometimes I'll ride Crisis, lock their back row unit, call this with Carbon, swing, and then let's try to Omega lock it, because sometimes they'll take the first attack. And it puts a little bit of pressure, because if they can't find a way to not get it out of the way and they need their starter for some reason, then, or if it's a really good starter, like if you're playing against, sometimes ZTBs will want to keep their starter and they're going to do fraudulent things with it later. If you want to lock it, keep it Omega locked, so you don't have to worry about it later. Granted, you could retire it as well when it unlocks, but sometimes you just want to be able to keep a locked dude so you can go into that next turn and keep building off those locks. So that's that. I know we've talked a lot so far. Let's go trigger lineup. We run 4 draw, but this is the Margot clone, so that came out in this new set. That's why we run it, because it's the Margot clone. It's good for Soul as well as Zinc, so that's why we run it, and it's a draw. It's a draw, so draws are nice. Next, we run 4 crits of your choice. I run 2 Star-vader Spark Doll and 2 Star-vader Meteor Liger. I just like the arts on these, to be honest. But you can run. I run basically 4 generic crits of your choice. Then we got to run the crits that actually matter. We run Paradigm Shift Dragon as a 4-of. This card is so versatile. If your opponent has a lock card, you put this on the top of the deck. If you have a Star-vader, Vanguard with Star-vader in its card name, if your opponent has a lock card, choose up to one of your opponent's rear guards in the back row, lock it, shuffle your deck. It's a crit that goes back in the deck and locks a back row unit. There was nothing wrong with this skill. It's really nice, really efficient, and more importantly than anything, it's a crit that goes back in the deck. So we run this as a 4-of, absolutely. Next, we run 4 of Light that lights up Demise. Carnia. We run it as a 4-of. This is good when you go into the G-Guard that goes into it. It helps you really countercharge, which is nice because, as we were talking about before, Zinc is really your only way to countercharge in this deck. So having this, albeit sometimes unlikely, it can be beneficial for you. So we run it as a 4-of. The only problem with this, it is the only card in this deck of the deck proper that doesn't have Star-vader in its name. So keep that in mind. Don't get a judge ruling for counter blasting this. Now granted, the only cards in this deck that require you to flip over a specific Star-vader in the deck proper is Chaos Breaker Dragon and Mulepton. So be aware of that when you're playing it. Don't make little mistakes. And then we're gonna go with the starter. So the starter, proper starter, is Carbon. So Carbon, as you probably know, if your opponent has a locked card, you can put this in the deck, search out for 1 greater less unit, not named this one, and then with Star-vader in its name, and call it. And it's really nice because this is really effective if you're gonna go in, if you feel like you're gonna go over, you're gonna lock a lot of things and pay a lot of cost, and you're like, man, I need some unflip ASAP. You tuck this in, you get yourself a Zinc, you put that Zinc into the soul, you countercharge. Now some people will say, oh, well, I could run Colony Maker instead of one of the other grade 2s that you run, and basically search out Colony Maker on demand. And I'd be like, you are completely 100% correct, but you really only net 1 in that case. This may be a one-off, but it's a one-off that gets you 2 guaranteed, assuming that you got the lock board and stuff like that. It's a net 2 gain, and it goes in the soul, which helps the soul. Whereas Colony Maker, you have to spend a CB to get a CB back. And then, granted, you may have a column, but you don't have a column because the thing's going away. So that's why I run Carbon. And then the other one of spicy tech I run is Dusttail. Dusttail, at first, I was like, why am I running this? I saw some builds in it that have topped, so I was like, I'm going to test it. It really works on Glueball turns. It's really nice and effective. If you go, not the second Glueball, because your second Glueball, if they survive the first one, the second Glueball is going to be able to lock anything it wants to lock anyways. But sometimes you're going to want to be super aggressive with the first Glueball and really put on the pressure. And the best way to do that is when you go into Glueball and you flip it, and it's like, okay, I'm only going to lock 1, but then here's 2, and then here's 3, and now you've suddenly got +9 to the front row. And now you've put on some viable threats on board, and now you're putting a lot of pressure on. Because sometimes in certain matchups, you might say, I want to Glueball first stride and try to, not Glueball first stride, I'm sorry, Glueball second stride and just go in hard as possible. And these cards can help you get there because they facilitate the extra locks. Now, let's talk about the G-Zone very quickly. So, I keep talking about him, so I'll go over him first. Glueball. Glueball is incredibly important. It's basically your finisher. It is your strong finisher, and it's basically the card that you push with to push him up there, and then it's the card that finishes it for you. I really like this card a lot. I really like what he does. So Soul Blast 1, you flip up a copy, and it basically locks if you have a heart with Star-vader in its card name, your opponent chooses one of his or her rear guards for each face-up card in your G-Zone and locks them. And then GB3, all your units in the front row with Star-vader in their card name gets +3k for each of your opponent's lock cards. It's a very good card. You have to run it as a 4 of, in my opinion. No less can be acceptable there. So, I like it as a 4. I run it as a 4. Next, we'll go over the old boy. Best Star-vader, Chaos Universe. You can get the reprint, you can get this one, whichever one you feel like. So kind of boss 1, your opponent has to choose a card from this. You choose a zone, and then your opponent has to choose a card. You choose one of his open rear guards, and then your opponent has to set a card from his hand, put it on the rear guard. It's a face-down lock unit. And then if you have 2 or more face-up cards in your G-Zone, you choose another one of your rear guards and lock it. I like this card. I liked it even back then. It's your first stride because it hand locks 1. Then you can go to locking other stuff with all the copious amount of cards that we have to lock stuff with. But it's a nice first stride, and it sets up the Glueball pretty nicely. So I like this card. You stride into this, you can use a starter, you can get Volt Line, which means, you're going to be able to make a lock that stuff so you can go into next turn with Glueball, keep locking stuff, and try to push for game there. I like this card a lot. I run it as a 4 of. Now, I'll go ahead and talk about, some of the stuff in the future so this video isn't immediately outdated when the next set comes out. I'll probably drop 2 of these to run the 2 of the new guy. The new Chaos, I can't remember his name right now, but the new Chaos Grade 4 that's coming out in the Stargate set. So that'd be one of the changes I make initially just out of that alone. So just so you guys know watching, that I have considered the changes that I would make personally, and that's definitely one of them. Because you really don't go into him a second time much anymore, but he's good to have just in case. Just in case there's nothing else you can do a turn and you need to get that stride, and at least this gives you something. Next card we're going to talk about is Big Daddy GR Deluge. Now this G-Zone is incredibly expensive, so let's go ahead and knock that out of the way. We're talking, $40, $50 card here, and then the rest of them are, Glueball is about 30 as is right now, and then Chaos Universe is pretty pricey in itself, so we're talking not the cheapest G-Zone, not the cheapest deck. So, Star-vader, Chaos Breaker, Deluge. Deluge's skill, Soul Blast 1, you choose a card from your G-Zone and flip it face up. And then you choose a card from your hand and discard it. If you have a hard card with Chaos in its card name, your opponent chooses 2 cards from his or her hand and puts them in separate rear guard as lock card. Then, if your number of cards in your opponent's damage is 4 or less, your opponent chooses one of your opponent's lock cards, and your opponent puts that card into his damage zone face down. If you wonder why I read these directly, it's because I want to make sure that I get the wording right. So yeah, Soul Blast 1, flip a card, any card, and then discard a card, and your opponent chooses 2 from his hand, puts them on the board, and then you may even deal a damage from it that he can't get any triggers from, any power or anything like that. Card is really good in that sense. I really like it for that reason, because sometimes you can go Universe, push him up to 3, push him up to 4 even, then drop Deluge. Deluge puts him up to 5, and now our glue balls are that much more effective in the next turn. Or you can go Universe, glue ball if he's still survived to 4 there, then you hit him with Deluge, push him to 5, then you hit him with the last glue ball for game. And then that's just some of your effective lines you can take there. Next card I want to talk about real quick is my one of in the G-Zone, Genesis Dragon, Amnesty Messiah. We run Amnesty Messiah because you are going to face the mirror match. Some people will run 2, some people will take it as far as 3, some people like myself will run it as a one of. Take this as a template and go with your own way with it, because it's going to be hard to figure it out. If your community plays a lot of Chaos, then you're definitely going to want to run maybe more Amnesty Messiahs. If your opponents are not, if your tournament scene really isn't a lot of Chaos, maybe just one will do it. Same thing with Messiahs, you're going to need an out. Even the Messiahs is probably going to unlock your cards anyways to get their skills. Or they might keep your cards locked, which means this gets you an out somehow. So that's where we run Amnesty, for the mirror and for other reasons. So that's it. And then we're going to go with the last card. I'm probably going to take this guy out, just so you know, but for now I still run him. Genesis, Machine Deity, Altwilder. He's the GB8. Yeah, I run him right now because GB8s are pretty solid in most cases. But there are only so many matchups where you'll actually ever really want to use them, so hold off if you're trying to be like, oh, I want to build the captain's build or whatever. Hold off on this particular decision, so I'll let you know what I'll do with this spot in just a second. We'll talk about the G-Zone. So we run 2 Lacus Carnia. This card is really good in certain matchups. It's very effective. So CB1, you flip up another copy, flip up a card in the G-Zone, and then a G Guardian from your G-Zone. And then when it's placed on Guardian Circle, you may basically lock 3 of your cards, 3 of your rear guards, lock them, and then your opponent locks one of his or her units in the back row for each guard that was locked. So it's pretty interesting. It's good if you're facing a lot of dudes and a lot of boosters in that case. Plus, at the end of his turn, they're going to unlock and you're going to get to draw a card from it. So you can use this to go into your one of Amnesty next turn to hit him for the crit. You can also, because his units are going to unlock at the other turn, you get a free card from the Crisis as well. So that's why I run them, 2 of them. I like it. It's pretty good. Next is Genesis, Machine Deity, Desthergen, and then Soul Blast 1, when it's placed on Guardian, if your opponent has when this uses placed on Guardian, if the number of locked cards is 2 or more, you pay the cost. If you do, draw a card. So this is really nice. It gets you another card, which is really good. If you're doing your job, this will get you another card. It's a 15k guard, so decide whether or not you should use this versus something else. That's the one thing that I have a problem with the G guards in this deck in particular, is just it's really hard to decide what you want to do. Some people run Maxwell instead of this card because it's like, oh, I'll unlock one of their cards and then draw a card off of it, and then I get plus 5k. That's a totally viable response. I've considered that as well, but this gets you a free card, and I like getting cards. Last but not least, Genesis Beast, Destiny Guardian. So, remember when I talked about how taking out Altwilder? The idea is to take out Altwilder and turn it into another one of this if you want to take my little advice there, but for now I'm still running him. But this is also a viable choice to Destiny Guardian. Destiny Guardian is a very good card in this deck because you can unlock 2 to get plus 10k, which is really going to help you. Now choose what you unlock carefully, and then you get to Crisis and kill one of the things you just unlocked to draw a card, which is going to help you if you have to guard more attacks in the future. So that's why we run it. It's incredibly useful. I approve of this card. Run it as a 1 of at minimum, as a 2 of at best. I like this card a lot. So let me know what you think in the comments, what you think of my build, what kind of changes would you make, what are you going to be running. Thank you guys for watching. As always, be prepared for new videos from Team Absolution. This is the Captain signing off. Peace.